So we're spending this kind of little 2-week mini-series. This is week 2 in this series where we're thinking about how easy it is as followers of Jesus to get caught up in the wrong stuff, like to miss the point, and then in the process to miss the central stuff that Jesus wants us to experience so that we can have life. And at the center of our faith is a pretty simple belief that it's actually possible for ordinary people to know and to walk with a living God. That's a big deal. And one of the most thought-provoking and interesting books that I've ever read is called The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. Yeah, how many of you have ever read that? Raise your hand. Oh man, a lot of you. It is, it's different. It's written as like instructions from one demon to another demon, like a senior demon that's training his little protege junior demon. And the junior demon has been assigned by their boss, okay, who would be Satan, to follow around and tempt this particular man. And it's kind of like the demons, when they're referring to the guy throughout their dialogue, they refer to him as the patient. That's just creepy to me, like the patient. It's just like bone chilling. So the objective of this junior demon is to keep the patient away from God. Like the ultimate goal, and this is interesting when you think about what the demons are up to, the ultimate goal isn't to make this guy sad. And it isn't even to make him evil. Like it isn't to make him depressed or to turn him into like the ultimate wretched sinner. Although from like the perspective of the demons, if that happens too, that's great. But the primary goal is just to keep him from God. The main objective is simply separation from God. Like whatever it takes, keep him from God. And it's interesting because in the story, like God is referred to as the enemy. And of course, from the perspective of a demon, that would make sense. But still, as you read, it's a little weird. It takes a little time to get used to that. And so I want to show you what I'm talking about. And I want to read you just a short little snippet, a little of the counsel of the senior demon to the junior demon. A reminder that getting this guy to commit like horrendous sins is not really the ultimate point. Okay, so here's what the senior demon says writes to his little junior demon protege. He says, "You will say that these are very small sins. Doubtless, like all young tempters, you are anxious to be able to report spectacular wickedness. But do remember, the only thing that matters is the extent to which you separate the man from the enemy. It does not matter how small the sins are, provided that their cumulative effect is to edge the man away from the light and out into the nothing." Now, if you know me, you know that I'm not a big, huge, like Satan and demons kind of guy. The Bible says that they're real and that they're active in our world, but I don't tend to give them really that much thought, and I don't tend to talk about them a lot. And for some Christians, like I've been around people like this, like every single problem in the world is a demon. Like every bad thought, every bad thing. There's a demon lurking around every corner. And if you know me, you know that I'm the opposite of that. But I want to start today by asking you to ponder a serious question. If the evil one were whispering to you, and he will, and he does, what kind of things might he say? It would probably be stuff like, don't aim at living each moment of every day in a transformational relationship with a risen, living Jesus. I think it would be stuff like, don't look to Jesus during the day when you need wisdom. Don't ask for his peace when you feel anxious. Don't confess your weakness when you feel tempted. Don't get on your knees and repent of your sin when you defy God. I think it would be stuff like, whatever you do, don't cultivate the habit of looking up to a transcendent God who is with you every day. Instead, get used to living within the boundaries of your own inadequacy and anxiety. Live as if you're on your own and everything depends on you. See, that's what we might call the without God life. And the evil one will whisper to you, just get used to that. Just live every moment outside of God's presence. And here's what I think can happen. A person can experience God in one particular season of their life. They can know Him, they can seek Him, they can depend on Him, they can love Him, they can pursue Him, they can encounter Him deeply. But then, life enters a new phase, a new season. Now, the person doesn't fall off a cliff and become an axe murderer, but slowly over time, that relationship with God begins to disappear. Especially if things are stable, if things in life are routine and things are predictable. A person can go to church and be engaged in Christian community. They can volunteer in ministry. They can go through all kinds of spiritual motions, and yet deep down, ultimately, that hunger for God, it's gone. The life-giving connection that they at one time had is gone. Now, if you ask that person to state their spiritual beliefs, they'd say, well, of course I believe in God. Because their core theology hasn't changed. Jesus is still the Son of God, crucified and resurrected. The Bible is still the Word of God. But from an actual day-to-day experience perspective, there's just no awe of God, no day-to-day experience with Him. There's no real adventure in following Him. There's practically speaking, they have settled into the without God life. And I'll tell you when I think we're in greatest danger of this. I think it's when things are going well. When life is predictable. When we can settle into a familiar and mostly enjoyable routine. When we're, for the most part, getting what we want. In the Old Testament, you see this pattern with Israel. And if you've read through the Old Testament, you just see this pattern. They find themselves in crisis. And then they cry out to God. And they humble themselves, and they plead for Him to move, and they repent of sins, and they consecrate themselves to Him, and He forgives them, and He meets them there. And there are miracles, and there's incredible worship. And then the moment fades. And they go back to normal life. The crisis passes, and they go back to the familiar and the predictable, and they start to forget about God, and they stop humbling themselves, and they stop seeking Him, and they stop experiencing Him. It's actually kind of amazing to me how easy it is to just sort of forget God. You can have these seasons of your life where He is so real. You can sense Him. You can see His activity in your life. You can just put your finger on it all over the place. And you're just in love with Him. And more than anything else, more than anything else in your life, you're like, I want Him. I want God. I want more of God. But then for some reason, things change. And in the next season of life, the very next season of life, you don't sense Him. And it isn't that He's hiding. It's that you've kind of stopped looking. And your life just becomes about a whole bunch of other stuff. And you just sort of settle into life without Him. And we have to decide, do I really want God? Or is it what I want? I just want Him to give me a nice life. If I just get the nice life, as long as I'm living out that nice life, do I just sort of forget God? In Exodus 33, God does this amazing thing. He forces Israel, in this moment, He forces Israel to decide what it is that they really want. They've just experienced His power and His presence deeply. God has just delivered them from slavery in Egypt. So, you know the story, about 400 years they had been in bondage to the Egyptians. They've been slaves working under unimaginable conditions. But God has now just freed them. They've just witnessed God's power over Pharaoh. They've seen the plagues. They've crossed the Red Sea. They've watched God drown the Egyptian army. And God was physically present with them on this journey in the coolest way. His presence was symbolized by a cloud in the sky. We're told it looked like a pillar. In the daytime, it was a cloud, and at nighttime, it was fire in the sky. And then they had this problem of food and water. Okay, there's suddenly 1 million of them trying to travel through the desert, and there's not enough food, not enough water. So what does God do? He gives them manna. He gives them quail. He gives them water that just starts flowing out of a rock. Just like one miracle after another miracle after another miracle to provide for these people. And they're seeing all of this stuff. And I can't imagine, I think about that and I go, I can't imagine what it must have been like to have walked through that and seen all that stuff. And some seasons of life are just kind of like that. Where his power is very real and it's very tangible, but then we enter into a new season. Now for Israel, things kind of died down very quickly, sort of all of a sudden. Moses goes up the mountain, and many of you know this story. Moses goes up the mountain to meet with God, and he's up there way longer than anyone expected, and the people get restless. And so they do the only reasonable thing they can think of. They gather up all the gold that they pillaged from the Egyptians, and they melt it down, and they construct this massive gold statue, the golden calf. And they start worshiping it. I mean, what else are you going to do? And as you know, God is not very happy about this. So right after this whole incident in Exodus chapter 32, the golden calf chapter, in chapter 33, God makes an offer to Israel. And it is really a staggering offer. This chapter 32 gets all the press, like the golden calf moment. That gets all the press. 33 is like people don't even know about 33. It doesn't get much action. But I think what happens in 33 is absolutely extraordinary. Here's how it kicks off. Exodus 33, starting with verse 1, it says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, 'Leave this place, you and the people you brought up out of Egypt, and go to the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I will send an angel before you. Go up to the land flowing with milk and honey. But,' he says, 'but I will not go with you. But I will not go with you because you are a stiff-necked people.'" For us to go, what is a stiff-necked people? Got to go to the chiropractor? What's that? This is an image of a horse, right? And you're trying to lead it somewhere, and the horse is going, "No, I'm going this way." He's like, "You're a stiff-necked people, and I might destroy you on the way." So you go ahead and go to the promised land. I'll send an angel. I'll take care of everything for you, but I'm not going to go with you. And it says, when the people heard these distressing words, they began to mourn. Now, I want to pause here for a second and really consider what it is that's happening. Because God, in this moment, has made a pretty incredible offer to the people. He was offering them pretty much everything they've ever wanted. I mean, when you think about it, he's saying to them, okay, you will be free from Egypt, and there will be no more slavery, and I will send an angel to go with you, and you'll have the protection and the guidance. I'll protect you from your enemies, and I'll give you the homeland that I promised, this land that's flowing with milk and honey. And your lives will flow with this material abundance like you've never seen. You will get exactly what you always wanted. There's just one thing. I will not go with you. You will not have my presence. You can have everything that you've always wanted, okay? Guidance so you can make the right decision. Protection so you'll be secure. Success so opposition will melt before you. And abundance as the milk and the honey flows. He says, but you won't have me. Okay, you can have it all, but not me. So the Israelites are kind of weighing this out. They have to weigh out what's really at stake here. So they've kind of put everything they've always wanted on one side, and they put the presence of God on the other side. And they decide, we just want to live in your presence, God. All that other stuff is great, but we don't want it without you. We cannot move on without you. We will not move on without you. And the whole nation, it says, goes into mourning. So Moses goes out to meet with God in verses 7 to 11. And it says, now Moses used to take a tent and pitch it outside the camp, some distance away, calling it the tent of meeting. Anyone inquiring of the Lord would go to the tent of meeting outside the camp. And whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people rose and stood at the entrances to their tents, watching Moses until he entered the tent. As Moses went into the tent, the pillar of cloud would come down and stay at the entrance while the Lord spoke with Moses. Whenever the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance to the tent, they all stood and worshiped, each at the entrance of their tent. The Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. Then Moses would return to the camp. So Moses would meet regularly with God in the tent of meeting. Now it says in verse 7 that anyone inquiring of the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting outside the camp. Okay, so apparently it wasn't just Moses that went out to the tent. But when Moses would go out to the tent, when Moses would go out there to meet God, that cloud, okay, the cloud that the whole nation could see all the time, the cloud that represented the presence of God with them, would, whenever Moses went in, it would descend on the tent. And when the people saw the cloud descend on the tent, they'd stand at the entrance of their own tents worshiping. And I don't know about you, that is such a powerful image to me. Like he's in the tent meeting with God, and they all stand outside of their own tents worshiping while he's in there, singing and praising God for the entire duration while he's in there. We're talking like 1 million people. That's just awesome to me. So on this day, Moses goes to the tent to have a heart-to-heart with God. Moses pleads with God. And he says, don't send us on without you. We cannot go on without you. So God agrees to continue to be present with them. But I want to stop here and I want to think about what happened for a moment, because I think about this and I think this is like huge. God had offered them everything they'd ever wanted, but they would have to go on without him, without his presence, to experience it. Now you think about that. Like, what if God made that same offer to you? What if God said to you, okay, I'm willing to give you everything you've ever wanted? Yeah. Willing to give you everything you've ever wanted. You want a nice house? You got it. You want a nice car? You got it. You want 2 cars, 4 cars, whatever? You got it. You want that dream job? You got it. You want a rich uncle to leave you an obscenely large inheritance? You got it. Here you go. You want to be successful in everything you're doing to unprecedented levels? Bam. Here's more success than you could ever imagine. You want to be respected and admired and envied by the people around you? No problem. You're single and you want me to hook you up? Done. You want a healthy family of a certain size? No problem. You want your kids to be the smartest and the best looking and the most successful at everything they do? Here you go. You get like super kids. You want the weather in Seattle to be like Hawaii all year round? Done. Seattle's a tropical paradise. You want the Mariners to win the World Series? Don't push it, dude. I mean, think about it. Like, look, what if God actually said, I am willing to give you everything that you've ever wanted. Here's the only stipulation. I'm not going with you. You won't experience my presence ever. Like, never again. See, what if God said, I'll give you everything that you want, okay, but then think about this. There will never again be times of prayer where you sense my presence with you. Every time you pray, it'll be like you're talking to a wall, because you will be. I won't be listening. And you'll never have another time of worship where your heart explodes and your soul expands and you feel overcome with a sense of peace or joy or excitement. You'll never again read the Bible or hear a sermon and get the sense that I'm talking like directly to you. You won't feel me convicting you of sin and challenging you to live differently. You'll never experience again the healing that comes from knowing that you're forgiven. Never again will you be talking to a friend and sense that I'm like talking to you through that person, talking to you because I love you. And I won't partner with you and walk alongside of you anymore. You'll never again experience a divine moment where you know that you and I have done something unbelievable together. I'm willing to give you everything, but you won't have me. Now, here's my question for you. When is the last time that you, sincerely in your heart, said to God something like this? More than anything else in the world, God, I just want you. Sure, there are blessings that I'm asking for, things that I would love for you to do for me. But more than any of that, God, I just want you. I just want more of you. I want to know your ways. I want to know your heart. I want to see the world the way that you see it. I want to laugh about the same things that make you laugh. I want to dance over the same things that bring you joy. I want to be angry over the same things that make you angry and frustrated over the same things that frustrate you. And I want to see more than ever how beautiful and how loving and how compassionate and how forgiving you are. When's the last time you cried out to God, really cried out to God and said, God, I want to have times of worship where I see your majesty so clearly to me that it gives me chills. Times where I get an overwhelming sense of peace and excitement because it just hits me. It just hits me that you're good. That you're perfectly good. That you love me and that you are at work in the world in ways that are beyond my understanding. And I want to experience the excitement of knowing that you and I were working together to go and impact the world, to change the world. I mean, when's the last time that you said something like, God, I want to be able to come to you when I'm empty and to have my heart filled to overflowing just because of you, because I'm with you. I want to have powerful times of prayer where not only do I talk to you, but I honestly sense that you're talking back to me. I want to have times where I'm talking with a good friend, and although I'm talking to them, I clearly hear your voice in what it is that they're saying to me. And I want to gather together weekly with other believers who are experiencing those same kinds of things. And with one voice, lift you up to the heavens in praise. Because we all know together that we're not alone. More than anything else in the world, God, I want you. I want to walk with you, and I want to see you, and I want to be loved by you. God, I will not be satisfied with a nice little life if you're not central to it. More than any of the blessings, God, I just want you. Now, maybe you've had seasons where God has been very real and very tangible to you. Where his presence, if you're honest about it and you think about what was going on in your life at that time, you look and you go, God just carried you. He carried you through that season. But lately, if you look and you think about your life, you think about where you are, you think about your interaction with him, you're not in that place anymore. I mean, maybe you're living a pretty nice life. But it's a nice life without God. I guess my question for you today is, how willing are you to just continue on without him? Because maybe you're here and you've never really experienced God deeply. Maybe you're new to the whole idea of this. But no matter where you are, no matter where you are in your journey, your relationship with God, here's what I find staggering in all of this. God's greatest desire is to be more and more present in our lives. His greatest wish is for us to seek him and then actually find him. Right out of this whole episode, Moses asked God a ridiculous question. And God's response to it just reveals his heart. God has essentially just been for a crude analogy, he's just been cheated on by the nation of Israel. After all that he had done to provide for her and to care for her, she just cheated on him. And he's basically said, look, babe, I'll give you the house. And I'll pay for maid service and lawn service for you. And I'll send you an obscenely large alimony check every other month so you can live in my mansion. You'll never go without. Like, there will be a cook. I'll pay for a cook. You can drive the Escalade. When it starts wearing out, I'll give you a new Escalade. And after that, if you want, I don't care what you want, I'll get it for you. But I'm moving out. I'm hurt, and I'm moving out. And Israel thinks about this, and she says, okay, wait, no, God. Hold on. We need you. We can't live without you. And so the nation, it says, goes into mourning. Now, I imagine all of these people, when they mourned, when Israelites mourned, they mourned. We look at that and we go, No, they mourned, man. I imagine them putting on sackcloth, and then they would rub ashes all over themselves, and they're literally weeping, and there's tears flowing down through the charcoal faces that they have. And then Moses goes out to the tent, and they're all standing there. They're all standing there looking on. And the cloud, they see the cloud. Moses goes in the tent, and the cloud descends on the tent. And so they all start worshiping God. Hundreds of thousands of Israelites are now worshiping God together. The whole nation is mourning, and they're weeping, and they're trying to sing through the tears. And Moses is in the tent, and he's with God, and he starts pleading with God. He says, please, God, do not make us go on without you. We need you. And God says, okay, I'll go with you. Okay, you cheated, but I will stand by you. And then in the midst of all of this raw emotion, Moses makes the boldest request. I mean, check this out. You think about the context in which Moses says it's just absurd, but he does it anyway. This is verses 18 to 23. It says, then Moses said, so once God says, okay, Moses says, now, show me your glory. And the Lord said, I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you, and I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But, he said, you cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live. Then the Lord said, there is a place near me where you may stand on a rock. When my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft in the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand, and you will see my back, but my face must not be seen. So God has granted this request to continue to go with the people. But Moses says, actually, I want more. I'm glad you're going with us, but I want more. I want to see you in the fullness of your glory. Now, show me your glory. And it's crazy to me. When I think about the context of this, but God does. He reveals as much of himself to Moses as Moses can handle. It's almost like he's just been sitting around waiting to be asked. It's almost like this is his greatest desire. It's almost like this is what we should expect if we cry out to him. I mean, we make finding God really complicated. I mean, what if it's as simple as sincerely crying out to him? Just sincerely asking him, regularly, to reveal himself. It's interesting because we talk in our culture about people finding God, right? People are always finding God. But when you think about that, it's kind of weird because in reality, God's not the one that's hiding. We're the ones that hide. The Bible paints the picture of this God who is always available to us. You think about Jeremiah 29, 13 and 14, where God says, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord. Or you think about what Paul said in Acts 17. He said, from one man he made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he determined the time set for them and the exact places where they should live. Okay, so your life is not an accident. The fact that you were born at this time, in this family, in this place, is not an accident. It says God did this so that men would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. Or Matthew chapter 7, where Jesus said, ask and it will be given you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. He who seeks finds, and to him who knocks the door will be opened. And want to ask you to think about something today, and this is such a simple thing, but it's like a big deal. What if God longs to be present with you in ways that you've never dreamed? And what if it really is just a matter of sincerely saying, God, I will not go on without you anymore. I need you in my life. I need your presence. I need your guidance. I need you. God, more than a nice life, I want you. So now, show me your glory.